I was just going through the motions with every aspect of my life, my music, my friendships, my work, you name it. Everything was a mess.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Sober Spill. My name is Isabel, and today I am here with Dylan Altman, man in recovery, prolific songwriter, alleged fan of Sarah J. Maas's fantasy series, Court of Thorns and Roses, as featured behind him. For the people that don't know you, who are you?
Well, let's start by saying I'm the father of a 24-year-old daughter who reads all this stuff, though we do share an affinity for Star Wars, so I'll give her that. Me and her together. Other than that, I'm a singer-songwriter here in Nashville, Tennessee, musician, play guitar, recovering alcoholic, proud recovering alcoholic for 6 years. It was September 19th that I celebrated 6 years. And what else do I love? I have a show. I have a cooking show on YouTube, cooking music show called Dylan Altman Soul Stew. We've started that in the last year, trying to build that up. So have musical guests. We do it all in my house. I cook for them. We sit and talk about food and music, and then we play music right there in my living room, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm trying to build that up.
Yeah, that is a super cool. I was looking into, and we'll get more into that later when we get down the road, but I saw that and I thought that was, as someone who loves to cook, I thought that was a really innovative concept and like super engaging. Like a cool
well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
I feel like I would have so much anxiety if I was being interviewed while I was eating, especially like something like pasta or something. Like that would stress me out.
So. Well, you're right. It's funny you say that because, when I first started doing it, we're about 13 episodes in. You have to find that you just have to get, you do interviews, so you understand. It's like you have to, it's a skill. You have to learn how to do it. And I had to learn how to not ask a probing question or any question just as someone has a mouthful of food. So, I try to time it to where it's like, like they've just finished chewing and then I throw a question and then they answer and this and that. And that's volleying generous. Back and forth. Yeah, it's a little challenging sometimes, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's very courteous of you. I feel like that would be terrible. Especially, this is what I brought it up. I think I saw a clip of someone eating like spaghetti or something. I was like, oh my God, my nightmare. I can't even.
Spinach in their teeth.
Going crazy. So you're in Tennessee now. You're based in Nashville, but you're from New Jersey. And I think that translates. I was watching once again, like some of your interviews, and it was so funny because you're using like y'all and man, but then it's Jersey through and through, and like the facial movements, like the hands, intonation. I love that. So starting off in Jersey, like back in the day, since you've ended up with this big career in music. When did you first discover having a love of music? Like, where did that come from?
Oh, well, from the downbeat, because, I was lucky. I had two parents who were artists. My mother she's no longer with us, but she was a wonderful she was from France, and she was an abstract painter and wonderful artist. And my father, who's still alive, is a great composer, kind of a contemporary classical composer, but also a wonderful jazz pianist. And in our little house there in Jersey, he had a studio where he'd always, he'd go into his studio and play, and I'd hear him playing his piano. So it'd be behind that closed door, you'd hear these beautiful melodies and harmonies coming out of there. And I have 3 siblings, but I was the one that really resonated with. And I used to come home from school when I was 5 years old, and it's back in the 70s. So, we were on vinyl, and I would sit there, and they had all the Beatles albums on vinyl. And I would listen to those records top to bottom, all of them, like religiously. And, then when I was 13, I heard and saw Eddie Van Halen play guitar. And that was really the moment where I was like, okay, this is, I think, what I want to do the rest of my life. And I can honestly say from that age, from the age of 13 to now I'm 54 years old, music has been my life. And went to college in Boston, Berklee College of Music. And from that moment, when I started playing bars, I can honestly say for 36 years, I've been professionally playing music, and it's been the greatest joy of my life, other than my family, my beautiful daughter.
I love how you described almost having like an I've arrived moment, like similar to how most of us alcoholics and addicts have that moment with
Yeah,
our drug of choice. Having that with
yeah.
like that kind of awakening in music is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm very lucky. I mean, it's like you encounter people all the time. I mean, I'm 54. I have friends who I went to school with who, some of them are happy, and a lot of them are working jobs that they're not crazy about. And the music business is funny. There's so much fucking heartbreak in it. There's a lot of ups and downs with it. But at the same time, even when it's down, you're doing what you love. It's like I had a show last night, and I was tired because I had been working a lot the last couple of weeks. I've been in and out of town, and as soon as I set my foot on that stage, for 2 hours I was as happy as I could be.
Mm.
And for me, and this pertains to my recovery, it's like if I can stay connected, because I was so damn disconnected when I was drinking, that for me, performing when I'm playing in front of a crowd, nothing fills my heart up more than that. Like, that's actually a time people always like, how do you play in bars being a full-blown alcoholic all those years? It's like, I do it because when I'm in a bar, I'm playing my music, there's nothing that makes me happier. So that doesn't make me want to drink. When I want to drink is when I'm sad, when I'm out there and I see a family of a man and woman and a daughter who are young, like my daughter was when I got divorced, and that makes my heart hurt, and that makes me want to drink. But
Mm.
playing music, doing joyful stuff, I couldn't be happier.
Mm. And I think that's one of the beautiful things with getting sober is when we stop fearing our emotions, like feeling things so deeply, being able to feel the positive things so deeply as well. Kind of like you
Yeah,
talked about, like that is being sensitive and being like attuned in that way can be a really special thing, even though
yeah. What is
it
it we
feels like
say?
a
We say
handicap. Yeah.
we say, and when you get sober, the good news is you get your feelings back, and the bad news is you get your feelings back.
I know. When I'm talking to clients and they're like, well, I'm getting my feelings back, I'm always like, ew, that sucks. And they're like, yeah. And we'll
Yeah,
talk
it
about it
does.
at
But you're
length.
right. No, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's a net positive,
Mm-hmm.
because the fact is, even now when I'm feeling the bad stuff, I mean, it's challenging, but I can always rewind that tape. I
Mm-hmm.
know what I used to do when I started feeling feelings. It would, bam, I'd start drinking. I would start drinking. I would check out. And it never went well beyond the first 5 minutes. The first 5 minutes of that drink is the ice cubes are chinking in there and stuff. And I felt like $1,000,000 for about 5 minutes. And then that anxiety started busting around and work like, it's like a dam breaking. And then it's just right there. And I was back to being lost and anxious and everything. So yeah, I'd rather feel my feelings now, because what it is I know a solution. I have a solution now, and it's connection. That's why, like, when I'm doing something like this, it's like, you asked me to do this. It's like, fuck yeah, I'll do something like this, because I want to talk about this with people. And again, other people might see this. Maybe had I seen something like this, you know, I would have changed sooner. But at the same time, we change. We're done when we're done, and I just wasn't done until I was done.
100%. And so getting into music and finding your love of that, it seems like a lot of your career came out of writing lyrics as like a primary thing and like being a songwriter. How did it transition into that?
Well, it's interesting. So I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. That was the first thing I wanted to do.
Mhm.
But I'd already been listening for years to all those Beatles songs. So I'd been absorbing that. And I grew up in Monmouth County, New Jersey, which is 15 minutes from where Springsteen grew up. So you kind of grew up with Springsteen, whether you liked it or not. And I loved it because I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And I was named for Dylan Thomas and Bob Dylan. So I listened to Bob Dylan and Neil Young and lots. I just listened to so much music as a kid. So I absorbed all different styles. But what happened is when I got into a band, when I started playing in bands, what do? You start writing songs because you have a band, so you need songs. And I started off writing horrible songs, or at least my lyrics.
Mhm.
The lyrics are just terrible. But that's what's good. It's like you learn by writing shit. Like, you start off writing bad stuff, and you get better at it. But where my lyric writing got much tighter and stronger is when I got down to Nashville. And
Mm.
I don't say that meaning like only in Nashville they write great lyrics. It's not that at all. But because Nashville, and at least in country music, the genre is so much more direct with their lyrics, it forces you to be direct and succinct with what you're saying. Whereas in a pop or rock tune, there's more poetry. You can be, abstract. You can have stuff that's beautiful, that's open for interpretation. But when you have to kind of write in a direct way, you might scoff at it initially, but what it does is it kind of forces you to connect and be there. And when you hear it, and that's when I started hearing great country songs like Christopherson songs and Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash, and then all the Dean Dillon stuff and Bob McDill and all these great writers down here. And it's just, you learn how to write a great lyric. And again, you don't always do it, but when you do it, it feels so satisfying when you can connect in 3 minutes or so with people on a real level here.
Like you were saying, with country music being almost a little bit more to the point, I kind of agree with that, where it can be also kind of like a jaunty adventure. Like I'm not a huge country person, but if you put Big Iron on, I'm doing a jig, like I'm getting excited, and that's like a fun little adventure to go on.
Yeah.
Were you always a country fan, or was it pivoted more into that once you moved to Nashville?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't listen to it at all. I mean,
Mhm.
growing up in New Jersey, not because I didn't like it, I just wasn't exposed to it. I mean, I know
Yeah.
about you, so you're from Connecticut. I mean, where I grew up in Jersey, nobody listened to country music. At least no one in my friend circle did, and my parents didn't. Though the closest I got, and this is a pretty good exposure, is that in the '70s in our Volare station wagon, my family had several great 8-track tapes, and one of them was a Hank Williams Sr. One. So it had all those, like Your Cheating Heart and I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, all that stuff. So I heard that. But in my formative years, the closest I came to country would have been probably the Eagles, Skinnerd, and the Allman Brothers, which is a pretty good, it's not country, but it's country adjacent. And there's certainly some Springsteen stuff that could fall into that as well. So, it wasn't like I had no exposure, but
Mhm.
if you looked at what I listened to in high school and college, I mean, high school was all either pop stuff, literally like Michael Jackson and all that
Mhm.
stuff, or metal, because I was a guitar player. So it was like Van Halen. I mean, I listened to everything. I could listen to Prince. I could listen to Bruce, listen to Madonna. I'd listen to American Top 40 and all that. But I never listened to country until I came down here in Nashville. And yeah, I mean, it's still not the main genre I'll listen to, even though I write in it. But I definitely immediately got and connected to Dolly and Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and all that stuff. I mean, it's
Mm.
some really wonderful music.
Totally. And I agree, being in like New England or like the tri-state area and not having as much country influence. I think the only song growing up I was aware of was the cover of Hurt by Johnny Cash. And I was a very like existential, like angsty child. So I remember being in the fourth grade and hearing it
Yeah,
like a knife
yeah.
in the heart. I was like, why am I
Yeah.
sad? uh,
Yeah, and that's such a haunting version of it. It's like when
oh,
he does
totally.
that, it's like it almost, it changes the song completely, which is already a brilliant song.
Mhm.
But it's just like from hearing it from that man's point of view at that age, and with the life he's led, it's just like, holy shit, that's a great
Yeah.
fucking.
And so where throughout all of this, throughout like these big moves and getting into an exciting career, where was your alcoholism? What was happening with your drinking throughout all of this? Was it a problem yet?
No, it's funny that you say that. I mean, I always look at it. I mean, I had a mother who was an alcoholic,
Mm.
and uh, and I think that it's uh, something that had probably been there. I know this. The first time I ever had a drink, like drink, was me and some buddies in my town. I was like 13. We on a Friday night we'd have a little pint of vodka and mix it with some orange juice, and I sure as hell loved that feeling. But through high school, I would binge drink the way most high school kids did, and I dabbled in smoking some weed, but it wasn't a problem at all. And even in college, it wasn't a problem. I mean, I drank, but it was never something that was anything that was even remotely problematic. Now, as I got older through my 20s, I started having more nights where I would get really like fucked up. But even that, it's like I'd get fucked up one night and then I'd have maybe, when I got married, I mean, sometimes I'd go a week or two without drinking at all. And I mean, I laugh about this because by the end, I was drinking a minimum of like a liter of vodka every single day or bourbon. I'd just alternate. And back then when I was married, I could have like a bottle of scotch in my house for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It would just sit there. But what changed for me was when in 2004, so I was 33, my little brother died. And my little brother and I were really, really close. And I've since learned through therapy and stuff that, we assume roles in our families, and I kind of had assumed a fixer role. And when he died, I assumed way too much blame for that. I had no control over that, obviously, but it really hit me hard. And that was the first time in my life. So I was 33 years old when suddenly I became a daily drinker. And he died on September 11th, ironically enough, of 2004. And then from that day till the end of the year, I drank every day. And it was the first time in my life I did that. But then I got through that. Like I had like 2 years of, again, going back to being a normal drinker. But then I went through a really rough divorce, and that was kind of the catalyst for the disease really sinking in. And once the divorce was final, well, then it was on. And I was like, I was basically a daily drinker for a solid 10 years until I ended up in rehab. So, I always tell people, like when I was in rehab, it's like my drinking changed when my brother died, because for the first time, I was no longer drinking for fun. I was drinking with intent. And the intent was to kill my feelings, like to escape my feelings. Not that I didn't have bad feelings prior, but my solution back then wasn't to get drunk. Once all that pain piled up those 3 years, it set me off, and that was it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in like everybody, like when you have alcoholism, you're born with it. And I think circumstances like that are also why we saw such a big influx of people needing treatment after COVID, where it's like it just created the right breeding ground for it. Like it was there and it was lurking, but now it's like the ground is fertile, let it grow.
Yeah. Like I said about COVID, what always blew me away about COVID, and I was sober during COVID.
Me too, girl.
But what I noticed was, I mean, when you think about it, like, so everything was shut down, but fucking liquor stores weren't shut down. And, it was considered an essential thing. And it's like, I feel like the unspoken thing is that maybe the powers that be would realize that we can't take away alcohol, because there are alcoholics who are functioning. If you take alcohol, there's going to be people having seizures and dying, literally. I mean,
hospitals are full. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people that who don't really, a lot of people just don't. They say, oh, you're an alcoholic. They have no idea what that means. But it's like, I wanted to say to them, it's like, well, okay, let me explain to you. When I was full on in my disease, if me and you ended up on a desert island and I didn't have my alcohol, that was it, I'd probably be starting having seizures and withdrawals within 3 or 4 days. That's how I would probably die. So it's like, it's a serious, serious, deadly disease.
Totally. And it's interesting too, with like your trajectory with drinking and also being successful in a career, like kind of the duality of having like, from what my research, having a bunch of like number one songs on the Billboard, like country charts, having all of these things, but at the same time, privately struggling with alcoholism. Did that create any sort of like pressure within your own identity?
You mean like, so getting the success in business, did that make me want to drink more? Is that what you're saying?
No, but it's like, kind of where it's like, it can make it harder to get help almost, where it's like, well, I'm doing well at these things, so like my drinking must not be that much of an issue, or also kind of like, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. I just didn't, I was in denial.
Mhm.
for so long. I didn't realize how bad the problem was until, you know, what is it? It's that quote they use. They kind of took it from Hemingway. It's like, you know, I became an alcoholic gradually and then suddenly. You know, I didn't realize the extent of the problem. I knew I had a problem. Like I definitely knew I was drinking too much, but you know, I was functioning. It was strange when I got sober and went to rehab because it was so sudden. I was just suddenly dragged to rehab, right? I had so many friends who didn't know the extent of my problem. Now they had seen me drunk, but also it was not like there weren't many incidents at all of me have being blackout drunk in public. The thing was, I drank so much of my drinking was at home alone,
Mm.
isolated. So when I got out of rehab, they're like, "Man, I didn't even realize you had a problem." So I was functioning. You know, I had a job. I mean, I can say that I was functioning to other people, but if you looked under that, you'd see, okay, this guy isn't functioning because I definitely think my work suffered. I mean, I feel like I had gotten on a good run as a songwriter there for a 3-year period, and you know, I kept working. I was writing good stuff, but I feel like I was functioning at 30 or 40% because of the alcohol. I just wasn't. I'd be canceling appointments. I'd be checked out sometimes. It was hit or miss,
Mhm.
and who knows what I could have accomplished had I not been. But you know, as we both know, you can't look back. I let go of that past, and
Yeah.
I can only focus on right now, and I don't regret it. I ended up where I am today because of those years, and I'm just grateful to be here, that I'm alive, because it could have gone south. It could have gone the other way
Totally.
very, very easily.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people like being in the music industry, I'm sure it was somewhat normalized too. Like there's a lot of drinking.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
it was crazy. I mean, you know, part of the problem, like at the time, during the bulk of those years I was drinking near the end, I had a weekly gig, a bi-weekly gig. So it was every other week I'd play with my band at this bar over here by Vanderbilt. And and it was an open bar. I mean, I didn't have to buy drinks, and it was just you know, the gig was from 6 to 8, and I'd get there at 5 o'clock, and I'd tell people, yeah, well, you know, I get there early. I want to set up and get prepared and this and that, and I
Mm.
would do that. But I also got there and had my first double at 5 o'clock, my second one at about 5:20, and my third one about 5:45, and then the show starts at 6, and then I was still drinking throughout, and that was what I did. But you know, again, I justified it because I was playing with great musicians, and you know, I was responsible. Like I'd finish the gig and I'd be drunk, but I'd
Huh.
go next door to the Japanese restaurant and eat a ton of food to absorb the alcohol while drinking Diet Cokes, and then take back roads all the way home. And as we both know, I was just lucky. But for the grace
Yeah.
of God, go I. That could have been me any day. I could have killed someone or killed myself, and I thank God every day that that did not happen. But but yeah, I was just kind of functioning, and it was like every festival I played, alcohol is flowing, and every uh industry function I go to, there was always an open bar, all that stuff. And yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge when I got sober, but at the same time it wasn't. Like people were like, how do you do it? It's like, well, I'm lucky in that so far, knock on wood,
Mm.
I have not relapsed in 6 years. And the
Mm.
reason I haven't is because I work a program, and I take this serious as a fucking heart attack, which means that I have tools at my disposal, which means I know that, you know, I know that I can go into these situations, industry functions and festivals and stuff, and not drink because I don't drink. No matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And if I feel that itch, because I'm a human, I'm an alcoholic, I do feel that itch sometimes. I
Mhm.
know what to do. Either get my ass to a meeting, I call my sponsor, I call another alcoholic, I do stuff to connect to people, you know. And if I'm connected, I'm not saying I'm not going to pick up, but I'm saying the odds are in my favor that I ain't going to pick up a drink.
Yeah, and that's what the 10-step promises, right? We're gonna be able to live as normal people and like react in normal circumstances. You can go to a brewery, you can go to a
Yeah.
bar, you can like not be insane and not be so fixated on it that it ruins everything else around you. And what are some of the circumstances that led to you seeking treatment? And did you attend treatment several times before you got this period of sobriety that you're in now?
So what happened is, I got sober on September 19th, 2019. And what led up to that is that last year of drinking, it was literally like a New Year's resolution. It was kind of like, all right, I'm going to stop. This year I'm going to stop. I knew it was getting out of control, right? I was like, I'm going to stop. And basically every day, every day I'd wake up and say, today I don't buy alcohol. And you know how it works. By about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you start itching. And then I'd go to the liquor store on 3 or 4 and say, tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. So it just kept spiraling out. And that summer was the worst I had. The summer of 2019, I was in the shower one morning and I had a horrible panic attack. And I thought I was having a heart attack. And it was one of those things where I felt, what I really felt was sadness. I felt like, oh my God, because it made sense to me. It's like the way I knew at that moment how I was taking care of myself. And I was like, well, sure, this is how it's going to end. It makes sense. This is how it's going to end. You're going to be found dead in your fucking shower because you're a full-blown alcoholic. But, I made it through that shower. I got through. I made it out to get to my Xanax and washed back a Xanax with a giant shot of vodka.
God bless.
But what that did is that means the rest of the summer I had PTSD in its own way. So every time I stepped foot in the shower, I started feeling panic coming in. So then that changed my drinking to where before I took a shower, every morning I'd wash back a Xanax with a massive shot of vodka. That's the only way I could get into the damn shower. So I did that. So it just was getting worse and worse and worse until finally on the last day, I was flying out to a gig on September 19th down in Florida to a festival I'd played many times. And I was anxious about it because I knew, again, open bar, I'm going to be drinking like a maniac. And I'd been drinking like crazy the whole day before. And it was an early morning flight, like 6 a.m. So it's like 4 a.m. I'm going to the airport, and I had a whole system. Because the other thing is this. I was riddled with anxiety about everything in my life, like most alcoholics tend to be. I was so scared of flying. The only way I could fly was to be fucked up, really fucked up. Now, sober, I fly practically every other week with no issue whatsoever. But at that time, I would have to be fucked up. So I would take I live near the airport, and what you do is there's a place called the parking spot. And you'd leave your car, and then they'd take you in a little van or limo over to the airport, like a 2-minute drive. And what I would do is I'd have a 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew where I'd pour out all but 1 ounce, and then I'd pour in vodka. So what it is from the drive from the parking spot to the airport, I would down 20 ounces of vodka like that. Now, normally that worked for me, but I'd been drinking the entire night before, and I get to the airport, and the last thing I remember, I could see it now. The last thing I remember was my hand taking that last swig of the vodka and then putting my hand, pushing it towards the trash can to throw it out. And the next thing I know, my eyes opened up and I was handcuffed to a gurney in a hospital. And I had been, as you know, these things, it was a blackout. I didn't pass out. I was blacked out drunk. So what it meant is I have thankfully no recollection of that. But what happened is I was apparently belligerent with the TSA, which makes sense because I hated myself. So if they called me on my drinking, I probably, got really angry at myself. And what happened is they took me, like I said, to the hospital, and my ex-wife picked me up. And she took one look at me and was like, all right, we got to get you some help. And being a full-blown alcoholic and a professional liar, I was telling her I figured it out. I made a mistake. I got it under control. Don't worry about it. And she took me back to my house. And for the next 2 hours, I tried to manipulate her to leave because of what I wanted to do. There was a liquor store about 100 yards from my house. I wanted to just walk to that, buy some booze, and they literally finish the job because I hated myself so much in that moment. But thankfully, she called my best friend, who knew I had a drink. One person who talked to me every night around 10 o'clock knew about my problem and had prepared for this. So he called Cumberland Heights, a facility here in Nashville, and he did an intervention with two of my other best friends, and the three of them and my ex-wife and my daughter, they told me enough was enough. They couldn't watch me kill myself anymore, and that they loved me, but they were not going to let me get out of this one. And I had no more fight left, to be honest with you. I was kind of like, all right, I just was like, why not? I'll try it. I'd just been arrested. I'd never been arrested before.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, let's do this. And they took me to Cumberland Heights by 3:00. And that started me on 30 days of, it was difficult. I had a really hard time there in rehab.
Yeah, and that's scary too, because I know, at least for myself, when I was drinking, for the most, like, I was always a blackout drinker, but for the most part, it would be like I black out and then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, what happened? But I remember like a specific instance, blacking out and then coming to still in the situation, but now there's like throw up everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I blacked out in a storage unit and then I woke up or I came to still in the storage unit, but now there's just like throw up everywhere and people are mad at me. Like,
Yeah, it's a very scary thing because I just have no idea what I did. But I know this much:
yeah,
I was definitely an asshole because
yeah.
I had a fat lip from one of the cops had punched me.
Wow.
So yeah, you should see I wish I still had that. I wish they'd let me keep my picture of when they first take you when you go into rehab, because I looked like I was dead. I looked like a walking zombie. I had a fat lip. I just
Yeah.
looked like yeah, it was terrible.
I know,
But
it's good to have those.
yeah, but those 30 days uh, were very difficult. I mean, I don't know if if you want me to just talk to you about that or.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I got in there, and the first night I'm there, and, in Cumberland Heights, they have like a medical ward. They got to get you stabilized before they can put you into a cabin. And, I'm in a bed, and the guy next to me, there was another guy in the room in a bed, and he was going through full withdrawals. Like, he's shaking and vomiting and everything. And he was just a mess, right? And for whatever reason, that first night, I was not that way. I remember literally looking up at the ceiling, twiddling my thumbs. And I was like, God, you really got yourself into a pickle here, man. I was like, well, I guess I can give it a try. 30 days. We'll see. Maybe I'll drink again. Maybe I won't. We'll see. But I said the last thing I said to myself that night was, looking at the guy to my left, like, well, it could be a lot worse. I could be like that poor bastard. Well, woke up that next morning, drenched in the pillow was basically as if someone had dropped a bucket on my head. And the next couple nights, my blood pressure was so bad because I was coming off not just alcohol, but Xanax. So both of them. And my blood pressure was peaking at like 210 over 120. And again, neurotic Jewish guy from New Jersey. So I know all about that kind of health stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew that was not good.
Yeah. I feel like
No,
most people, regardless.
I was afraid I was going to, I was afraid I was going to die. I just thought that was it. And again, it made sense. I could do the math. I was like, all right, it's been 10 years of a daily struggle with this thing. It's going to kill you. You've eaten badly. You've taken care of yourself badly. So I was terrified. But that's a good thing, because what happened is that third night at 3 a.m, when the nurse came in on the hour to check my blood pressure again, that was the first time in those first 3 days where I looked at her. She walked in and I said, all right, you got me. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh,
like,
wow.
It was kind of like, it was like a moment, like an aha moment almost. Like it was a surrender moment. Like, all right, this thing's got me by the throat. I'm an alcoholic. Help me. And it was amazing because that night, I had a friend. I have one of my best friends who was at my intervention. This guy named Bryce Long, my best friends in the world. And he's a man of great faith. I am not really a guy of great faith. This program has given me a lot of spirituality, but he's a man of great faith. And he saw me struggling that last summer, and he was sending me daily texts in the morning. Like, he'd send me a Bible verse that was inspiring. And then the end of the text, he'd say, hey, D, God loves you, and so do I. Have a great day. Stuff like that, doing his best to pick up his friend. Well, I'm in there, and it's 3 a.m, and I'm struggling I'm afraid I'm going to die. And I asked if they could just bring someone in I could talk to while I'm waiting for the nurse to come in every hour to check my blood pressure. So one of the guys who was in there, is just looking at me and he's just trying to make conversation. And I start telling him about my friend, this guy who sends me these Bible verses every day and how much it helped me. And I describe what he looks like. And I swear to God, this guy looks at me and goes, "You're not talking about Bryce Long, are you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I know Bryce. He's a friend of mine." And look, this agnostic sitting right here heard that, and that was my first moment of, well, you know what, maybe that is a God moment.
Yeah.
Because that just made sense to me. It's like, how the fuck did that happen? And
Yeah.
even if it didn't, I was willing to take that coincidence and turn it into a God moment, because that gave me like an anchor to be like, okay, you're not going to die tonight. You know, you might die tomorrow, but you're not dying tonight, and you're going to get through this day. And then that's when I started embracing the one day at a time, and then just being in there and talking to other alcoholics. So I spent my 30 days. It was almost a reconnaissance mission. I was talking to other guys who were on their third, fourth, fifth time in rehab, and I always looked at them with no judgment. Not like, why are you still in here? Why are you back in here? Nothing like that. I said, why did you end up back in here? Because nobody wants to end up back in there. And they all had a different version of the same damn story. They thought they could handle it. They stopped going to meetings. They stopped talking to their sponsor. They got disconnected. You know, they thought they could have another drink. They could drink like a normal person. All of them said the same thing. So I listened to that, and I listened and I absorbed that. So when I was done with my 30 days, I got out, and when I got home, my daughter got the meeting guide app on my phone, and I picked out a meeting in my neighborhood. I saw, oh, there's one right around the corner from my house. Went to it first day, and then on Monday morning, I went at 7 a.m., and it's still my home group 6 years later. And that is where the real extra aha moment came. It was like, holy shit, I was listening to people talking openly about their feelings and what they were going through, their joys, their struggles. And I looked around the room and everyone was sharing, and there was no judgment. There was nothing but empathy and compassion and love in all these people's eyes. And it became my tribe. I was like, holy shit, these people get me and I get these people. And that's when I dove in. And, I did 90 and 90. And I was continuing to go. And then the fucking pandemic hit. And I couldn't go into meetings because we stopped going to meetings. And I did some Zoom meetings. And it was struggling. It sure as hell was a test. But I made it through it. And I'll never forget when we started going back to meetings that summer. I went to some meetings and they were small. There weren't a lot of people in there because people were scared. And I had my mask on. But I remember the first day I walked in, and as soon as I looked around, I did one of these. I was like, like I was home. And I was like, from that moment on, I knew I was safe because I had my people around me. And yeah, I've been lucky. I have not relapsed. I've not been back to rehab, and I have no intention to be back in rehab. And I just do my best to work this program, because as I tell people, I go speak to alcoholics every Monday night at my old rehab facility. And they're guys who are sitting in the same chair I was 6 years ago. And I tell them, like, how do I do it and stuff? And what do I do? And it's that I work this program, and it's not a, if you look at the steps, I mean, alcohol is only really mentioned in the first step. It's a life program. If you work this program, if you adhere to those principles, humility, gratitude, action, willingness, all these things, if you adhere to that and follow these steps, there's no guarantee we're not going to pick up a drink, but I like our fucking chances. And if you
Totally.
keep showing up to these meetings, it'll help you, because you're going to stay connected. So when you do have that moment, like we all will, because life keeps coming, it is undefeated in that way. But it's going to happen, and when it happens, you will be prepared for it. And I have been prepared. I've had a lot of shit happen in these 6 years, and I make it through because I ain't going to drink over it.
One chip wonder.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so a lot of times, this is like super common, as I'm sure you know, when you start drinking, it pulls you away from the stuff you love. It pulls you away from your hobbies. How did your relationship with music change towards the end of your alcoholism, if it did change?
Oh, like when I got sober.
Well, right before you got sober, like when you were in the depths of your alcoholism.
I mean, I hated writing at that point. I
Mm,
really did, but it wasn't so much. I just started hating everything at
yeah.
that point. Like I'd hit a point where, the business changes. So the music business was changing, and I was struggling to get songs through, and some of that was my fault. Like some of it was because of the alcoholism. I wasn't writing as frequently, or I wasn't as engaged. So maybe the product wasn't as good when I was writing.
Hmm.
But a lot of it was just things that happen in the business, changes
Hmm.
and stuff. And because I was drinking, instead of adapting or being an adult, because that's the other thing. One of my favorite sayings. There's all these great AA sayings, but one of my favorite is it's like it's not about drinking or not drinking. It's about growing up. It's
Mm,
about being a fucking adult. So how do you react? Well, because it wasn't going my way that last summer, I reacted by stamping my feet and being upset that why am I not getting cuts? Why am I not getting this? And I just drank over it.
mhm.
So, and then the playing, when I had that bi-weekly gig, you know, I had great moments. I mean, it was like I'm a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, and Stevie Ray Vaughan's always been an inspiration to me because he got sober, you know. But there are clips of him when he was drinking, and some of them are unbelievable. Like you watch him. There's this one show, the El Macambo show from Toronto. It's a famous video out there, and from top to bottom, he plays and sings the best I've ever heard him. And he was completely fucked up on Crown Royal and Coke. But most of the other live stuff you see from those days, it's up and down. Like you'll see him killing it for a song or two or three, and then it's like he's lost for two or three songs. And then it's like that. Whereas when you see him, the clips when he was sober, everything is just up. He is
Yeah.
just on the whole time. So it's like I was all over the place those last few years, and it was still an anchor in my life. I still loved it, but I didn't really love anything because I hated
Totally.
myself so much. So it was like I was just going through the motions with every aspect of my life, my music, my friendships, my work, you name it. Everything was a mess.
Yeah, and that's also like a big struggle I hear from a lot of people too with getting sober is they're worried it'll mess up their creativity or their process or their output. Did you have any concerns about finding your way back to that after you got sober, like as this new version of you?
Like a new version in terms of like relationships.
Well, because you're sober now, like new
Yeah.
version. Yeah,
Well, it's interesting. Every alcoholic and addict story is different.
totally.
Uh, I didn't run around with other alcoholics.
Mm.
I
One
had
man
no,
show.
I had no alcoholic addict friends. And I had a lot of friends. Like I was just again, I've been to enough AA meetings to hear, and I was in rehab to hear how people burned a million bridges. How some people, even after they've been sober, have never come back. I didn't have that
Mhm.
because I was again such an isolated drunk. And I had one skill that I don't know why I had this, but I had an ability as a full-blown alcoholic to do preemptive amends. Like I would wake up the next morning and be like, "Oh my God, what did I say this to so and so?" And I would reach out either via phone call or text and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry about last night." And people like that. They respect, it's like they'd say, "Oh, it's all right, man. I get it. You had a little too much to drink last night, but thanks for reaching out." So what happened is when I got sober, there was only a handful of people
Mm.
that I had really alienated or truly alienated. Like my step nines weren't really about like repairing a relationship that had been shattered. It was more about making amends to people and being like, I have some cousins and family who I have great relationships with now, simply because I went to him on my step nine and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry that I was distant all those years and we had no relationship. I was a full-blown alcoholic, but I'd love to change that." And I have. So all my relationships I had with my friends, which again, I had wonderful friends. Well, they're so much richer now because they're getting the full me. They're not getting the 1 foot half in the door me. Like,
Yeah.
and I take it seriously now, the connection thing. So when I tell, I was one of those guys who, for whatever reason, even though I loved all my friends, I never said I love you. It wasn't one of those things. I didn't. I reserved I love you for my daughter or my wife at the time or a girlfriend or parents, you know. Well, I got out of rehab and that changed. And I tell people I love them all the time. And I mean it. Not like, I still feel weird when someone who I have no connection with tells me they love me. I kind of never know. Unless they're in the program. The
I know. I'm
program, I
like,
get
you
it.
don't
'Cause,
mean it.
yeah. But I mean it when I tell people that.
Mhm.
And I wear it with pride. It's like, that's who I am. I have wonderful relationships now. And this program has helped me that when I do have those occasional human moments where I either are short with people or this or that, or maybe I say something I regret, I'll hang up the phone and every single time I will think about it and I'll look at it, the big picture, and I'll clean my side of the street and I call up and I make an amends, a living amends in the moment. And you know what? People appreciate that. And people also never expect that because the normies or the civilians, as I like to call them out there, who aren't alcoholics, generally don't live like that. Some do, but we do it because we have to. Like we have to do it. It's a tool to stay sober. But beyond that, it becomes just a way of living. And it's a preferred way of living. I like to have that with my friends. I like to have no resentments with my friends. I like having open relationships and, with talking to friends about stuff. And, normal friends, the normies, they don't always do that. They don't like to talk about stuff. But that's okay. Some of my friends who are normal drinkers do that. But I know this much, all my friends in AA, I can talk about anything, anytime.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
my friends, like I got 2 or 3 friends who I've only been friends with the last 4 or 5 years of my sobriety. And I'm as close, if not closer to them than some of my friends from 30 years because we can talk about anything. And as I explained to other people, it's not like we only talk about recovery, but everything we talk about is cloaked in recovery, or it'll always come back to that. It'll come back to being a good human because that's what it does. It's like, I always say this in AA meetings. If I was like, I many times I said during a share, I'll say, if we could stop the clock right now and rewind to where everyone sitting in this meeting was the person they were on the day before they got sober, it'd be just a room full of assholes and liars and hurt people really struggling. And you fast forward to the moment when we're all sitting there. And again, nobody's perfect. But if you're sitting in one of those meetings, 9 times out of 10, you're trying to get better. You're trying to live in a solution. So you're looking out at people who are good, are doing their best, are genuinely good people. They're not trying to undermine you. They're not trying to lie to you, and they're not trying to steal from you or anything like that. And that's what I love. And those are the relationships I seek out.
And yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. It felt like a trial by fire. I was spending time with a friend. It was like all of my friends from the program and one friend who wasn't. And just watching her wide-eyed as everyone was like, yeah, and then my dad died. And like, here's all of the stuff that happened in my life, just open book.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you if they want to find Soul Stew, if they want to see you live? Like, where can people connect with you or find what you're up to?
Well, the easiest way to get any information on everything is I'm not very savvy with social media, but I am on Instagram at dylanaltmanmusic.com, and that'll have advertises anytime I have a show. I usually advertise it on that. And, sometimes there's shows that are out of town, out of Nashville. So if you're in a place where I'm playing that weekend, likely I will advertise that. And then I always post on that page about my the cooking show, which is Dylan Altman's Soul Stew. And that's on YouTube. So all you have to do is get on YouTube and type in Dylan Altman's Soul Stew, and there's tons of content, not just the 13 episodes, but we've broken down episodes where there's musical performances and there's the cooking portions and there's conversations and all this stuff. So yeah, that's the best way. I mean, if you want to see the stuff I'm doing, it's going to be all up there.
Yeah, and I believe Soul Stew has its own Instagram too at Dylan Altman.
It does.
Soul Stew. Yeah.
And I'd encourage that too, but it's just I feel like I have more followers on the Dylan Altman music, and it'll always
Yeah.
lead you to that one too.
Yeah, they collab a lot, I noticed. Do you ever play up in New England? You ever come venture back up? Are you scared? You don't want to come see us?
well, no, it's funny you say that because this September, it's my second year. I did a gig at this festival, because songwriters down in Nashville, we do a lot of these songwriter festivals, but it's country music, so they tend to be down south. I do tons of shit in Florida or Texas or Georgia or this or that. But, we do this one festival in Annapolis every year. And again, I feel like I'm in the Northeast, so they consider that the Mid-Atlantic. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't normally do gigs up there, though I'm trying to change that. Like last weekend, I was actually back in my hometown in Jersey, Roosevelt, New Jersey, and I played a great gig in my hometown. And I'm trying to get some stuff in the new year up in, there's a possibility of having a show at the Bitter End in New York.
Oh.
So that would be great. I could let you know about that. That's probably not that far from you.
No, I'll be there.
But yeah, so I'm trying to. I mean, if I could allow myself to dream, it's that I want this. What I want more than anything is for this cooking show to grow and to continue, because I feel like being in Nashville, the potential list of guests, musical guests, is endless. And if it continues to grow, well, then that could grow myself and my career to the point where I could then start doing more stuff in the Northeast. Because I've been down here for 32 years, but as you can hear, I still have retained my Jersey accent because I love it up there. Like I felt real nostalgia being home last week, and it really filled my heart up being up there. And again, I went to school in Boston at Berklee College of Music, so I love New England. I've got a real fondness for that. My family, when I was a kid, we used to summer up in Vermont on a little lake, and I do this thing called Songwriting with Soldiers, and I was up there in the end of September writing with some soldiers in Rome, Maine, which was beautiful, like an hour and a half outside of Portland. And I just love New England. I love the people up there. Yeah.
We're good people. We can be a little bit
good
frigid.
Stock. You're good stock up there.
Oh yeah, the best. But I am biased, so I can't. I mean, actually, no. I was in Minnesota for a while, and the people were way nicer than they are here. I'm not even gonna lie. But
yeah, they're nice people up there.
It is what it is. Yeah, I never had been tipped so well as a server before. It was like, wow, this is what it's like to not be resented by strangers for nothing. Yeah. This is crazy. All right, dude. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're going to link all your stuff in the description below so people can check you out. Definitely, anyone that's listening, check out Soul Stew. That's a really cool concept. If you love to cook, you like to hear raw stories, and you like music, it's all in one.
Yeah, and for those of you who just tuned in at the very end, this is my daughter's stuff.
Oh yeah, it's
I'm
not
looking
him.
at all this stuff behind me. It's just so funny. I'm just cracking up.
I know. I've been making eye contact with Mark Hamill in the right corner for most of this, where I'm like, oh hey, what are you doing here?
Anyway, well, hey Isabel, I appreciate you, and I really am grateful that you asked me to do this. I love talking about recovery and sobriety, and I like to reach out to all those out there still sick and suffering, because this disease is a deadly disease, and the only way we can fix this ourselves is to talk about it and to connect and know that there is life on the other side of recovery.
Totally. All right. Thanks for hanging out.
Sure
and anybody that's watching, we'll see you next week.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, Mountainside can help. Call 860-365-6764 to speak with our caring treatment team.